All right, welcome everybody to the LEAP info session. LEAP stands for Leadership, Education, and Advancement for Professionals. It is September 16th, and on the West Coast, it's 12 o'clock. So welcome everybody and I'm so excited to see people from all over the country. I'm excited to be here with you all and be able to answer any of the questions you all may have about the application and the program. And I'll be giving a little bit of background on the program as well. So welcome and please do bring your questions, drop them in the chat. We'll have time at the end of the session to unmute folks and they can go ahead and participate in that way. So let's go ahead and get started. And again, continue to share your names, your pronouns, where you're coming from, your agencies. I'm seeing folks from all over the country, really, really exciting. So just a little bit of housekeeping and how to use Zoom. I'm sure many of us have been on Zoom for a very long time, for the last year and a half. So this is really just a quick rundown, really encouraging folks to use the text chat. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, Shelby will be helping me facilitate and pointing to any questions I may not be addressing quite just yet. We do have one polling question that'll pop up at the beginning. And if you are dialing in from your phone and you would like to unmute yourself at the end of the session, you'll go ahead and press *6 to do that. And again, the slides and the recordings will be available after the webinar. I'll be sending them via our newsletter, and they will also be on the Valor US website and the LEAP website. So if folks are unable to attend, you can go ahead and watch it. If you would like to rewatch it for some reason, you can also do that. So as I said, my name is Marcela Rojas Salas. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a project manager with Valor US, specifically for the LEAP program and for the Advancing PREA project. So anybody out there looking for support on working with incarcerated survivors or detention facilities, feel free to reach out to me for that as well. And then I have my wonderful colleague, Shelby, on the call as well. Hand it over to her to introduce herself.
Thank you, Marcella. Good afternoon, everyone. Like Marcella said, my name is Shelby Phillips. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the communications and project coordinator here at Valor. And I am happy to be here with you all today to provide some extra support. If something comes up on the session, feel free to send me a private message and I'll be happy to help you troubleshoot.
Thanks so much, Shelby. And I also have our program grant specialist on the call, Tanette from OVW. I don't know if I want to put you on the spot, but you're welcome to unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Tanette's been very, very helpful in the development of the program. So feel free to introduce yourself if you'd like to.
Sure. Hi, my name is Tanette Gassa. I'm the program manager at the Office of Violence Against Women. I am a manager for the Sexual Assault Services Culturally Specific Program, as well as managing some of the Culturally Specific Services programs. And then I also manage Culturally Specific Technical Assistance projects. Welcome to the line, and I will be here if there are any questions that you may have for OVW. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much, Tanette. Yeah, so again, if you have any questions for OVW, feel free to reach out to Tanette. She is on the call. Alrighty. And thanks everybody for continuing to introduce yourself. I see people chiming in from Nebraska, Hawaii, Washington, so welcome. It's so good to have you here. And I do have to say this project is supported by the Office of Violence Against Women, the U.S. Department of Justice. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this program are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Justice. And so here is the agenda for the session. We'll talk a little bit about the catalyst for the LEAP program and provide a bit of an overview of the program application requirements, the program goals, and the program structure. So we hope to answer all your questions by the end of this session. Before we get started on that, I want to pop up a quick poll question. Always interested to hear what kind of outreach methods are working for us and how we've been able to reach you. So how did you hear about LEAP Cohort 8 applications opening? Was it from a friend or a colleague? Was it from a newsletter or email? Perhaps social media? Or if it's something else that isn't listed here, feel free to drop it in the chat and let us know so we can hear what other avenues are reaching you all. Thanks for participating, folks. I'm seeing most people are saying they've heard about it from a friend or a colleague or a newsletter or an email. So that makes sense to me. Totally makes sense. We really, really depend on people in our networks to continue to share these applications with folks in their network. So thank you all for sharing the application and the info session with your colleagues. I really appreciate it. Awesome. Some folks are saying they heard about it from the conference. Absolutely. Yeah. NSAC, I assume. Yeah. Other conferences I'm sure have also shared about this. So appreciate other conference leaders sharing that information. Let me go ahead and end the poll and share those results. Yeah. So about 50% heard about it from a newsletter, and the other folks mostly learned from friends and colleagues. So again, thanks for sharing our application with folks. So let's get into the meat of it. So the catalyst for the LEAP program. So I get a lot of questions from folks about who is eligible, and this program was really designed for women of color, and some folks may wonder why that is. And although this field is growing and women of color are taking up space and taking up leadership positions, there are still fewer women of color in leadership roles and even fewer in executive roles. So we really want to be conscious of this, right, and make sure that we're making an intervention. And we're also seeing in the past that women of color in high-level positions had been terminated or forced to resign for various reasons. And so we want to make sure that we're preventing that. And then the other thing we were hearing from women of color when we were trying to make these interventions was there was this sort of lack of opportunities to develop those skills, and specifically these executive leadership skills. And ultimately, who does this have an impact on? The people that we're serving, underrepresented leaders of color. It has an impact on survivors and victims. And so we really want to make sure that when we're serving folks, we're also representing our community in our agencies. So I'm sure many folks have also seen this infographic. It's become pretty popular in the last couple of years, and it's titled "The Quote Unquote Problem Woman of Color in the Workplace," right? And so it sort of outlines what happens oftentimes when a woman of color enters an organization that's either, predominantly led by white leadership, or perhaps it's a culturally specific organization that may have sort of funding streams or objectives that are really tied to the status quo. And so we want to make sure that women of color leaders, when they are entering these organizations and are wanting to make changes, that they're being supported. And so oftentimes that looks like providing training on how to make these changes, right? And so I'll drop in the chat really quickly where the infographic came from if folks are wanting to take a closer look at it. There's an article also attached to the infographic. Always, I'm a nerd, so I love sharing my research with folks. So check that out. And then I want to talk about why LEAP. Again, I talked about how women of color are often not receiving sort of the executive leadership training that they're hoping to receive. And in fact, in 2011, the Women of Color Network, who helped us establish this program, released a document titled "Women of Color Leadership: Look at the Experiences of Women of Color Executives in the Anti-Violence Against Women Movement." And because of this report, we've learned so much about women of color executives in the field and have continued to learn since this report. And so we've learned that opportunities for executive level professional development have been stark, especially for women of color. And in particular, this sort of learning curve around, meaningful fiscal involvement, meaningful board involvement. When we look at the applications, oftentimes what women of color are saying the most is that they don't feel confident about being involved in finances or budgeting, being involved in board development, or perhaps even diversifying their boards. So this is another intervention we're trying to make with this program. And then, of course, we've learned that women of color have few people they can look to for informal or formal mentoring. But those who have had formal mentorship or informal mentorship have said that it's invaluable, right? It makes a huge difference in the way that they can strive and build their confidence in their new positions. And so that's another intervention we're making here in the program. A large part of the program is networking and coaching, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the later section about the program structure. Checking the chat really quickly to see if I've gotten any questions. I see folks are still introducing themselves. Wonderful. Okay, so let's get into the program application requirements. So another piece of the puzzle is understanding who's eligible for the application. So folks that self-identify as women of color are really the people that this program is designed for. I've gotten a few questions from folks that are asking, men of color asking, can we join? Can we apply? I still encourage men of color to apply with that, with this caveat in mind that it really was designed for women of color. So we do keep that in mind as we're looking at the applications. Another piece of the puzzle, if you are currently in an executive director role or a senior director or senior manager role for at least 1 year at your organization, then you are eligible to apply. Another question I've gotten to is, yes, and I'm getting a question from someone in the chat, are trans and non-binary people of color eligible? Absolutely, yes, encourage you to apply, please do. We want to see more people joining the program. So yes, if you are an executive director, senior director, or senior manager, you are eligible to apply. I've gotten some questions from folks that are in coordinator positions about understanding whether they're able to apply. I will say that if you have at least 1 year of experience supervising staff at your organization, then I encourage you to apply. Again, if you have all the requirements and all the eligibility, that will help you. But I still encourage you to apply if you do have that supervisory experience. And then of course, a commitment to the sexual assault and or domestic violence and intervention prevention field, and a demonstrated experience in developing diverse agencies and programs that include women of color and individuals from underserved and underrepresented communities. And these are things that I really want to see demonstrated in the cover letters to talk about what your experience is working with diverse populations and diverse agencies. And then last but not least, fully commit to the LEAP 9-month program period and requirements. It is a 9-month long program, so we want folks to be able to participate fully in all 9 of those months. And then I'm seeing people continuing to introduce themselves. Is there an age requirement? Older generations? There's no age requirement. Anyone at any age is able to apply. Christine is asking, how is a senior manager defined? Do you have that specific title? Do you have to have supervisees? So senior manager, I'm going to go ahead and use the at least 1 year of experience as in that role as how we're defining senior manager. Christine, if you have a specific question around your title, feel free to drop them in chat so it'll help me kind of help you figure out if you are eligible. But yes, we do want folks to have supervisory experience. And then let's see, also another question coming in about would prevention work through education qualify or just direct services? Absolutely, yes. If you are in the prevention field, we certainly want you participating. It's not just for folks that are in direct service positions. What about aspiring leaders? Angelica, so you'd have to define that a little bit more for me. I think everyone is an aspiring leader, right? So if it's specifically if you have this position of senior director, senior manager, or executive director, and you also have supervisory experience. Yeah. Just shy of a year with current organization, have supervisory experience more than 3 years. Yeah, Crystal, I would still encourage you to apply if you are just shy of a year with your current organization and have supervisory experience. Absolutely, please still apply. Yeah. Okay, Christine is asking, she's a program manager. What if the supervisory experience was at a previous organization and not your current role? If you have previous supervisory experience, but you don't have experience in your current role, I would still encourage you to apply. That's something that I would still encourage you to apply. Let's see. Rima is asking, can presidents apply? Absolutely, you can apply. If you're a CEO, if you are an executive director, if you are a president, you are absolutely encouraged to apply. Let's see, Brittany is asking, can supervisory experience include master's level social work interns doing field work? Yes, that would also be included. How many people will be participating in the cohort? Generally about 20 people will participate in the cohort. And let's see, I'm still seeing a couple questions come in. Shelby, can you let me know if I missed any of the questions?
Yeah, there was one that I read and I hope you didn't already answer, but it was asking about, is there an age requirement?
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's no age requirement. Someone is asking, what is the follow-up once application has been submitted and the notification timeframe? So I'll talk about that in a second. So that's on the slide. So I'll talk about that. What is your acceptance rate? It honestly ranges every year because we get a different amount of applicants every year. So I couldn't give you a straight number. Yeah. Let's see. I have another question again asking how many folks can participate in the cohort. About 20. Okay. Okay, so I think I got another question that I might have skipped. This person is saying, I really want to apply and am being encouraged to do so as well by my supervisor, but I'm unsure if I meet the criteria. I've technically been in a supervising role for about 2 years. However, I was not given a title. I was being harassed by it. I'm sorry, this is a little private, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. Yeah, so again, if you have been in a supervisory role, but you weren't provided a title, like a management title or a director title, please still apply. I know that there are sometimes internal conflicts and internal issues that you may not have received that title, but you've been doing the work. Please apply. Yeah, and include that in your cover letter that you do provide supervisory support. Would smaller organizations qualify? We have less than 5 people. Yeah, if you have one person who's running your organization, or if you have 100 people organizing in your organization, you can absolutely apply. Let's see, for 9 months commitment, do you have to remain employed at the same organization for the duration of the program? No, if you end up, and this happens often, if you end up changing your role or you go to a different organization, you can still remain in the project. Just let us know. We want to hear about the transitions you're going through. Let's see. How many applicants are accepted? Traditionally, about 20 people are accepted. Let's see. Love all the questions coming in. I'm trying to keep track of them. Give me a second here, y'all. Okay, can Navy sexual assault response coordinators apply? If you have supervisory experience in that role, then you can apply. If you are supervising interns or staff, then you are able to apply. I'm getting a question about assuming supervisory role only includes supervising other staff. Let's see. I'm getting, if not a woman of color, can you still apply? This program is designed for women of color. If you're a person of color, you can apply. I have a question about what have past participants reported about how the cohort benefited them? You know, I think it's gonna range from everybody, but I would say in large part, it's been the networking and the community building that people have been able to build. And the webinars that we provide around working with boards, finances, and budgeting. We have a wonderful consultant that we bring on every year who has been able to make budgeting and finances very accessible, and people always rave about her work. Would we be required to travel? In the past, there was travel. During the pandemic, everything has been virtual. In 2022, we anticipate that it will also be virtual. You know, if things begin to be a little bit more safe at the end of 2022, there may be an in-person LEAP Academy, but I wouldn't sort of plan for that. Does supervising volunteer advocates count? I would say interns and staff. If you're supervising interns and staff, then yes. So another question, I work in child sexual abuse prevention, and while we see that directly connected to adult sexual violence, I'd like to double check that it is included. It is included, yes. All right, I'm getting more questions about program structure, so I'm going to move on, and then I'll come back to these questions and make sure I'm answering them. Okay, so here's the LEAP application. This is a little bit about what you're going to see when you're applying. Most of you have probably already received the Google form, and so I'm going to drop that in the chat so that you all have it if you don't have it yet. And so there's going to be questions about your experience in the field, how long you've been at your organization, how long you have been in the field, and how long you've been in your role. And then you'll want to speak to your board and your executive directors about getting approval, telling them more about what the program involves. It's a very large commitment, and oftentimes our webinars or our small groups or our academies take place during work hours. And so we want your leadership team to also be aware of that. And then of course you will submit a cover letter, a resume and your CV, and then a bio and your photo. And here's the estimated timeline. So as you know, applications open September 1st, they close October 1st, and we will take October, the beginning of October, to go ahead and review those applications. And then there will be a set of interviews. So we're hoping to schedule those interviews in October and early November, and then provide you a notification in December, if not earlier. So here we go. So here's a little bit about the LEAP program goals and structure. So these are our goals: to build upon and enhance the professional capacity of women of color executives, senior directors, and senior managers in anti-violence against women programs, to create a community of support and professional network for emerging women of color executives and management leaders, really aimed at reducing isolation. This is something that we often see with women of color. They feel often isolated in their organizations. Perhaps they're one of two or one of the only women of color in their organizations. Really maximizing skills development, information sharing amongst ourselves, and communication. And then, of course, optimizing the success and effectiveness of emerging women of color leaders by providing opportunities to impact spheres of influence in communities through paying it forward. And I'll talk a little bit about that in our following slides. So here's the LEAP program structure. There is one-on-one coaching, and it's intensive and interactive coaching. This is something that the LEAP fellow will meet with their LEAP coach that we've identified with them about once a month for an hour. And you two will sort of identify the goals that you have to kind of work on in the next 9 months and beyond that. Some folks are starting their own organization, so they're getting support from their coaches in terms of getting their bylaws written, or working on training, working on a guide for their board of directors. So these are some of the things that people might be working on. And then, of course, we have 2 academies that are held during the beginning of the program, and then one at the end of the program. Back when there was not a pandemic, we would do these in person, and they were 3-day long academies, but now they are 2 days long, and they're all virtual. And so we try to do them either on a Wednesday and a Friday, so that you have a gap in the middle to just kind of decompress, catch up on whatever you need to catch up on. And then, of course, we have small group coaching, and traditionally it'll be on 2 different topics. And traditionally it's around working with boards and then finances. And then we have our web conferences, which we will have 6 of them throughout the program. And some of the topics will be program development and sustainability, organizational development, organizational media and public speaking, strategic planning and evaluation, human resources, and cultural capacity building. So I'll drop that in the chat so folks have that list. And I know sometimes I like to be able to look at those in writing. Okay. Let's see. So in terms of LEAP program expectations and opportunities, there is an impact project at the end of the program. And so this is something that we really encourage folks to sort of pay it forward in their local communities. So if there is a gap in your community that is working in this field, that you see you want to make an intervention in, and you've been learning about certain topics in the program that you'd like to pass on to the staff at your organization or staff at other organizations near you, or community members in your local community, whether that's grassroots organizers, whether that's advocates who are volunteers, really being able to expand your knowledge to your local community. And then we have one-on-one coaching sessions on here because this is one of the activities that's not necessarily sort of where Valor holds the container for it. It's really on the onus of the LEAP coach and the LEAP fellow to set up those meeting times. We sort of set up the meeting times and in facilitation for the webinars and for the small group coaching. But for the one-on-ones, that's something that the onus is really on the LEAP coach and the LEAP mentee. And then of course, networking is certainly an opportunity that folks can tap into. I'm pretty hands-on. If I see that there's a LEAP fellow who is starting a faith-based organization and another LEAP fellow that's already started their organization, I'll kind of tap into that and make sure that folks are aware of that and that they can connect and make that connection. So let's see. And I'm seeing a lot of questions pop in the chat. So let me go ahead and scroll up and make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, so Arti is talking about what is the structure of the program? Is there a syllabus or something you can show us that the program does monthly? Yeah, so that was what I had just shared. So hopefully that answered your question, Arti, and you can private message me and let me know if you have any follow-ups. How many sessions per month do we have? So it depends. So if we are, I'm going to go back to the program structure. So for the web conferences, you're only going to have about one a month. For the small group coaching, you may have 2 or 3 a month. But that's just, if you have 2 or 3 a month, then you're done. So, right, there's only 4 of these. So we tend to do all of them in 1 month. So that's kind of the heavier month, and we'll keep you posted on that. I have a question asking, I've been in the sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, gender discrimination field for 15 years, informal management, not formal title. Yes, you can apply. If your agency works on more than sexual assault and partner violence, does that qualify? So you can still qualify. If not accepted for the current cohort, would an applicant need to reapply for the next cohort? Yes, you would need to reapply. Is that ED and board approval a separate form? Can you provide an example? No, it's in the same form. And you know what I'll do is I'll actually just open up the form and I'll show folks where that is. Let me open up the form and I'll share my screen. Here we go. So this is where executive director and direct supervisor information will go. And this is where, you know, if you're providing this information, we kind of assume that you've had a conversation with your executive director and that they're approving you to include that information. And then of course, the board president and board chair information. I will say, if you receive approval from your executive director, that's acceptable. If you don't necessarily have time to get approval from your board, that's okay, but we do still want their information. Okay, let me stop the share there and then go back to, oh no, the info session, which apparently got exited out of. Gotta love tech. Shelby, as I'm looking for this, do you mind reading off questions for me? Any that I've missed? So just so there's no quiet.
Yeah. Well, I hope that I'm reading the most recent ones. So we have a question that says, do you have examples of previous impact projects?
Okay, yeah. Some examples of previous impact projects would be, I know one of our fellows created a guidebook on working with immigrant survivors and becoming an immigrant leader. I haven't read the guidebook, so I couldn't share more about the content of the guidebook, but that's one of them. I actually got to attend one of the impact projects back when I was living in Portland, and I was an advocate and a prevention coordinator. And the LEAP Fellow created a training for folks in the field on how to step into your executive leadership power. And she provided a bunch of research on the impact women of color have in executive leadership roles. She also talked about, the ways that we sort of push back on traditional forms of leadership and sort of express the way that she decided to show up as a leader, and was able to sort of talk about like setting boundaries at work. She was like, I'm not going to work more than 50 hours a week. That's my sort of my cap. So that had a good impact on me talking to her. I see another question, is that ED and board approval? Oh no, sorry. Who are the coaches in the program, EDs? They tend to be either former executive directors, people that are in director positions, or that have experience working with executive leadership teams. How many one-on-one coaching sessions are there? There tends to be at least 7. I think sometimes if the fellows, don't have the capacity to meet, they may not meet every month. But like I said, the onus really is on you and your coach to schedule those meetings. What will be the time commitment on a monthly basis? I couldn't tell you on a monthly basis. I would say on a weekly basis, anywhere from 1 hour to 5 hours a week. And there may, like I said, there may be there may be some weeks where you don't meet with us at all. There may be some weeks where you meet with us much longer. So for example, the LEAP academies, those are much longer. They're full day academies. And so you'll have about 16 hours committed to the program, but those only happen twice. For numbers of years in the field, does field work or extracurricular count in that number, or does professional experience also, or is it just professional experience? It is about professional experience. So the extracurriculars don't necessarily account for that. Approximately how competitive is the program? Like I said earlier, in terms of the acceptance rate, it ranges every year. Sometimes we get more applications one year than we do the other. So it really depends on how many people end up applying this year. Someone's saying they don't currently have an executive director at their organization. Then whoever is sort of the interim person who is sort of guiding the organization, whoever is your director that you're communicating with, I would say go ahead and try to get approval from them. Crystal Hollins, will the application allowed to continue through if receive approval from ED but haven't? If you are, I know it's kind of hard to get a hold of your board. So if you don't get approval from your board, but you get approval from your ED, that's quite all right. Yes, the recording will be shared. It will be up on our website, on the LEAP website, and I will also send it out via the newsletter. All right, I think I've answered all of the questions. I am gonna make sure that oh, I got another question. Does it count if you supervise employees on specific projects but aren't their formal supervisor? And Nita, are you saying that you're not, you don't have is this because you're in a coordinator role, or you can unmute yourself too? I think we're at a good point where I think folks can start to unmute themselves.
I'm at an associate director level, but we just like have so many people on our team that it's kind of like people are split between a lot of different projects.
Yeah, I totally understand that sometimes people have like more than one manager kind of looking over their work. Yeah, that's totally acceptable if you are sort of informally or formally or supervising folks, then yes.
Great, thanks.
Any other folks have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself. We have about 20 minutes left for questions and wanted to make sure that.
Since I'm the president and I'm also president of the board
Mhm.
and a nonprofit, so do I put my name in both places, or you
Yes,
need
go
another
ahead.
name?
Yeah, go ahead and put your name in both places.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, as I wait for folks to kind of think of other questions, I'm going to go ahead and play this video from Tanji Reese, who is one of our past LEAP fellows, who graciously offered to talk a little bit about her experience. It's a very quick video, so I'm going to share that with you all. And crossing my fingers that it works. Might take a couple seconds to load.
Hi, my name is Tanji Reese, and
Can folks hear it? Yeah, okay.
I am the founder of 1124 and a part of LEAP Cohort 5. My time.
Oh no, but you can't see her.
Yeah, we can hear her, but we can't see
Yeah,
her.
let me see what I can do here. Thanks everybody for your patience. It's always a hit or miss with videos. And then of course, when I'm sharing my screen, everything goes 10 times slower.
Hi, my name is Tanji.
I'm not sure why it's not showing. Well, I guess we're just gonna have to listen to what she has to say.
Reese, and I am the founder of 1124 and a part of LEAP Cohort 5. My time in LEAP was invaluable. Not only did I get all my questions answered, but I felt way more confident as a nonprofit leader once I ended the program. I built great relationships with my fellow cohort members, and I just really understood who I was as a leader better. I understood my strengths, my challenges, areas where I thought I didn't have interest, where I actually was really interested in. And it really helped me to make a lot of decisions and choices about my next steps. That one-on-one time I had with my coach was so helpful with the path that I've been on, and I can't thank LEAP enough for that. It's so important for leaders of color in the sexual and domestic violence movement to have spaces to grow and develop, to convene with each other, to learn from each other, and to prepare to lead organizations. We have always been here. We have always been at the forefront of this movement, but we have not always had the opportunities to show who we are. And LEAP is that perfect opportunity.
All right. Yeah, so that was Tanji. She started her own organization and is thriving out here in Detroit. So grateful for her to share a little bit about her experience.
So
Hi,
Maricela,
Stella.
is it a certificate? Sorry, oops, somebody was speaking.
No, go ahead.
Is it
Is there a certificate?
Is it, what is it? What do you get at the end?
Yes, you do receive a certificate at the end. Aside from what you receive at the end, the learning and the networking, you do receive a certificate. Yeah. And Tanette, you were going to add something?
So I just wanted to, so of course I haven't gone through the program, but I can just say, like, so I've been managing this program for 6 years. Um, it's just really a wonderful program. Like, there is just such a sense of community when you're there. I've spoken to a lot of folks who have gone through the program during the different times that I've come to orientation, and you can just tell there's this feeling of, wow, there are other people who look like me who are in these positions, and then there are lasting relationships that have happened afterwards. As a person who has oftentimes looked like me and been in the room with no one else looking like me, I would have loved personally to have gone through the program at different points of my career, just to have like that support network, to have someone that I would have been able to talk to and express things with. So that's my little spiel. I just think it's a wonderful program.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeanette. And I just have to say, I just started in the role a few months ago and have already been impacted by it. Even before being in the role, I was, have met other LEAP fellows that became my mentors and who I look up to now, and can say that I'm really where I am because of the people that uplifted me when I was first starting out. So, and I still, I think a lot of the LEAP fellows still connect with each other from, LEAP cohort 1 all the way back, that still have relationships with their coaches, still have relationships with their cohort. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm checking the chat again. Let's see, did I miss anything? Will the recording be shared? Yes, absolutely. The recording is going to be shared. It'll be up on the Valor website, on the LEAP website, and it'll be sent in a newsletter to everybody. Another question about how many applicants do we usually receive? It really ranges every year, so I couldn't give you all a number. Yeah. If you're an ED who's applying, would you want the board chair approval? Yeah, I think that, yeah, we would need to get some approval from the chair if you are an ED. I'm getting another question about, does it count if you supervise employees on specific projects, but aren't their formal supervisor? Yes, that does count. I'm getting a question about, will the cohort start in January of each year? It will either start at the end of January or the beginning of February. And they start at a different time every year, just depending on the grant cycle and, other various variables. Are there any programs for people who want to become leaders and are not in leadership yet? One thing I keep getting in, you have a degree but not experience. I'm trying to think if there are other sort of leadership programs that I know of. Right now, the one organization I can think of is the Building Movement Project that I would encourage folks to look into. I know that they have programs that are around social movements and organizing. So it's not necessarily tied to the sexual violence movement, but there are sort of those intersections that show up. But I don't have a leadership program through Valor that I could share with you all. Does the organization have to be a 501c3 that the leader is coming from? That's a good question. No, you don't have to be from a 501c3 if you're from a campus or you're from the county or you're doing some sort of governmental work. That's totally acceptable. Yeah, so long as you're in the field. If you are anticipating a job move from October 1 to February 2020, this move would be an advancement in leadership roles. Could you clarify if you're asking about whether you would only be eligible once you enter that leadership role? I got a question from Catherine. You can unmute yourself too.
Yeah, so just my question is really related. If you are anticipating like advancing in your career and and there's an anticipation that will happen with a different organization come early 2022, 2022. Is now a good time to apply, or should we wait until the next cycle?
So my question would be, if you have, supervisory experience, I would still encourage you to apply. If you want to talk about, you're striving to become a leader in your cover letter, certainly do that. But if you're not in the role yet, you can't really speak to that quite just yet. Yeah. Someone's asking, is the program OVW funded? Yes, it is OVW funded. Will cohort participants need to access books or other materials during the cohorts? There's no books involved. There's no sort of reading of books, but we do have sort of guidebooks or toolkits that we encourage folks to read, in particular for the finance small groups and the working with board small groups. We do have toolkits that we encourage folks to read before they attend those sessions, so that you can have some questions to ask the consultants that are facilitating them. Yeah. I have someone asking a question, and I think it might be a question Tanette might be able to answer. Are there any OVW funded mentorship programs for early career women of color in the field? Yeah.
So there's been lots of discussion around developing programs like that. We don't have any currently, but there has absolutely been some discussion around doing something like that. I will say that we do have, I'm trying to think what would be a good thing to sort of point you in the direction of. The closest I can think of, if you're just looking for like different ways to deal, that's not the right resource either. I was gonna say possibly you can look and see what some of the work that Women of Color Network is doing. They're located in Pennsylvania. They have a number of different types of projects. They may have something, but as far as OVW, this is a project that's funded by OVW.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure, where you're located, but oftentimes a coalition might have like a communities of color task force or something that's specifically for advocates of color. So I would look to your coalition specifically to see if they have any sort of resources at their organization, or if they know of any. Yeah, because that's where I went to when I was in Oregon. I would go to the communities of color task force meeting and kind of was able to meet more people when I first started out. Any other questions? I just have to say, it's so exciting to see so many women of color on the call. Someone else asked, not sure if the question regarding nonprofit status was answered. Yes, so it was answered earlier today. But yes, if you are not working at a nonprofit, but you're on campus, you can certainly apply. Or if you're working at the county, so long as you're in the field, it doesn't necessarily need to be a nonprofit. You don't need to be working at a rape crisis center or a domestic violence agency. If you're in the field, you can apply. There's no cost in the program. It's completely free. If we end up doing any sort of travel, then the cost usually is on the LEAP fellow. Sometimes we have scholarships. But this past year we haven't had anything in person, so I don't necessarily anticipate that there will be anything in the next year. Yeah. All right, we got about 10 more minutes, so I'm definitely down to stay on if folks have any other questions or.
Sorry, I had a call, Maricela. So there is a cost to this
There's no
program?
cost. It's free. There's no
Okay,
cost. And yes, the recording will be available. So we'll be sending it through the newsletter. We'll be sending it through the email. Yeah. And Shelby also said, when I was talking about the toolkits and the guidebooks, none of those you don't have to pay for them. We'll provide those for free. Yeah. All right. I think I answered everything. Did I miss anything?
No, it's an awesome opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rima. Thanks for joining us. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and drop my email in the chat. Feel free to send me any sort of questions that may arise as you are filling out your application or trying to get approval from your executive director or your board. They are absolutely welcome to email me if they have any questions. So please feel free to use me as a resource. That's what I'm here for. So I hope to see everybody's applications. I'm excited to read about you all and hope to see you all soon. Take care, everybody. And Tanette also included her email address in there. So feel free to chime in if you have a question for her.
Bye. Thank you.
We can't save the chat, so that's gonna be tough.
It'll be sent out to you later on too. No worries.
Oh, okay, because I needed the emails, but you can't find them now with all the.
If you let me scroll up and send it again.
I see. Thank you.
There we go. All right. Well, I'll see everybody later. Hopefully. Take care, everybody. We'll talk soon.
Bye.